The crimes of FBI's Operation COINTELPRO were discussed at a seminar at Northeastern University.
And Jeff has devoted his entire career to representing and defending people involved in progressive movements for social change. Jeff is one of the founders of the People's Law Office in Chicago, which has served as a model for progressive lawyers across the country now for over 40 years. Jeff and his partners represented the Black Panthers, they represented Puerto Rican nationalists, prisoners at Attica and Pontiac, Michigan, and other places where prison unrest was led to serious political controversy, numerous victims of police brutality and wrongful conviction, death row prisoners who were victims of John Burge and other Chicago police officers who tortured them to obtain false confessions, and countless other victims of oppression and repression. These lawyers are not only among the best people's lawyers in the country, they're among the best lawyers in the country, period.
In particular, we wanted to be lawyers for the Black Panthers, who had started their chapter in Chicago in November of 1968. So we came together and we started our office in a sausage shop. And over the first 3 years, we had a sign over it said Michael Fless's Homemade Sausage over our People's Law Office. But we were determined that we were going to try to take our skills, limited as they were, and represent the movement. And basically, from the moment we opened our doors, we were busy because the Chicago police kept us busy because they were arresting the Young Lords and the Panthers and the SDS faction. And of course then, almost at the same time, my first case actually was 15 people who got busted outside the conspiracy trial the first day that Bobby Seale had been bound and gagged. Most of them worked for Legal Assistance Foundation, decided that we wanted to be lawyers for the movement. And there was so much happening in Chicago at that time. You still had people charged from the Democratic Convention the summer before. You had the SDS, different factions going through and demonstrating in Chicago. One of them took on.
And when that happened, being a fresh face on the legal scene, I was just so sure that the courts were going to take care of this situation, that the people who had done this would be prosecuted, and the criminal justice system would take care of it. That was why I had gone to law school. I was so committed to making sure that wherever injustice was, that justice would triumph eventually. Well, of course, I learned from my own experience that that was just a simplistic view of the world. It just doesn't work that way. And since we have so many law students in the room tonight, I just wanted to talk about the book and the message. And there are many examples in this book for the kind of model that you don't want to follow. Jairus Leonard, for example, was the assistant U.S. attorney, I think, in charge of civil rights in the, was it Nixon at the time? Jairus Leonard was part of that conspiracy to trade Hanrahan and Company's freedom for what never should have happened in the first place, the criminal charges against the Panthers. So that is just so sleazy. And the sleazy content is something that you want to avoid in your career as a lawyer. And I think that when you read this book, you will come quickly to decisions about what kind of lawyer you should be and what kind of lawyer you shouldn't be.
Jeff, for finding the time to write. Not easy to be a lawyer, an activist lawyer, and taking the time to actually write. And not only write, but write about something that I'm sure, if I may, Jeff, say was painful. To have to relive the experience of law enforcement getting away with murdering somebody that you came to respect and work for. So I particularly want to acknowledge the fact that you shared that pain and shared that story. I read the book cover to cover. I couldn't put it down. And I had gone through, living the experience at the time that Fred Hampton was murdered, but I just had to see every scintilla of information that was included in the book, so I appreciate you recording that history. And it's so timely, as Judge Hines asked, could this happen again? And she said either absolutely or probably, and I guess I would say without a doubt, been able to document at least 30 other members of the Black Panther Party who were assassinated by the FBI or local law enforcement, who were targeted by the umbrella of the COINTELPRO program. Of the 258 programs that COINTELPRO instituted, 233 were targeted at the Black Panther Party. So that gives you some idea of how important it was to J. Edgar Hoover and his band of goons to destroy the party. The push to attack so-called domestic terrorism was unleashed back in January of 2007 against a bunch of senior citizens. A group of guys who came to be known as the San Francisco Eight, who were former members of the Black Panther Party, who were in their 50s and 60s and 70s, who had gone on to make middle-class lives for themselves, licensed electricians, real estate appraiser, community court judge. These 8 men were arrested January 27, 2007, and charged with murdering a police officer in San Francisco back in 1971. And the government entity that brought these charges against them and was responsible for the prosecution is an entity called Operation Phoenix. And Operation Phoenix is made up of members of the San Francisco Police Department, the California State Attorney General's Office, the FBI, the CIA, the Secret Service, and, surprisingly, the IRS. Yeah. When they were arrested, $10 million bail was set on each one of them. I know. They didn't take personal checks, so we're going to have a little trouble raising the bail. But ultimately, we were able to get the bail reduced to a point where 6 of the men got out, which was something that the government hadn't counted on. And so they then started going around the country telling their own story.
Take this information, take the book, put it away. We have to do something about this. History has continued from that era into the present day.